Hi everyone, Big Thinny Ice Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Pink Siifu project, Black Antique. Here we have the newest full-length album from one of the most versatile artists in the hip-hop underground right now. That would be Pink Siifu, a multi-instrumentalist, producer, lyricist. Now, I usually spend this part of the review doing a bit of a contextual sound style overview, explaining an artist's overall vibe, how exactly their music might fit in the rubric of the greater art world, but that is becoming increasingly difficult with Pink Siifu. Not only because he's so active and prolific. I mean, there's so much material to keep up with between his early work or the multiple collaboration projects he put out in 2022 and 2023. There were also the 4 full volumes of his Got Food at the Crib mixtape series last year in 2024. But on top of all of this, there is a variation in terms of sound and mood from record to record to record, to the point where you just don't really know what you're going to get next. I mean, my favorite record from Siifu so far is handily his 2021 Gumbo album, which was this fuzzy, textured, trippy ode to southern hip-hop, jazz, trap, and everything in between. And while I do think very highly of the album, it almost sounds nothing like anything else in his catalog, because with each new record or series of projects, he is reinventing himself entirely or operating at levels of such low-key, near silence that the music is barely registering a pulse. Because if there is an element of Siifu's music that is consistent for the most part, it's that sometimes it can run pretty quiet, though this may not necessarily be like my preferred mode that he operates in. To his credit, though, it is something that he's obviously very self-aware about. He did have that collab album drop last year with Too Rich Benji titled It's Too Quiet, which yeah, I'm not like really in disagreement with that assessment. However, a good deal of Black Antique is not necessarily one of those releases. I mean, for sure, there are elements of the music on this record that feel akin to previous Siifu records. The buried vocals, the spacey production, as well as the kind of rough around the edges DIY to its core presentation. But Siifu on this record actually devotes more runtime than he ever has to songs that not only span past 6 minutes in length, but also bring a lot of punk vibes and lo-fi distortion and noise. This is especially true of the material in the first half, which is pretty important to note, given that I feel like with this record we're almost getting 2 albums in one. I mean, I wouldn't say there is a hard border separating the first half and the second half of the record, but the first 9 songs of this album are most definitely predominantly aggressive, and some of Siifu's most experimental, abrasive, and explosive material to date. We have this short title track intro, which brings a very heavy synthesizer opening, and then eventually these distorted, rumbling percussion loops, laid-back, head-nodding flows as well, which are punctured by these just harsh, feedback-laced walls of noise. And then we have multiple bars on this track defining Siifu's creativity in the greater rap sphere, comparing himself to ODB as well as Spike Lee. It's the intro. Gotta let him know. It's just sort of an abrupt tone setter that very quickly brings us into Alive and Direct, which is a surreal synth punk rap odyssey that spans 6 minutes and 25 seconds, complete with throbbing bass and what sounds like that really throaty sound that ODB was making during an interlude on his debut album, which has been sampled on many a hip-hop song since. But yeah, sonically this track is pure madness and spends a lot of time building up across its linear progression. However, the tension is so great that it's just edge of your seat for every moment that it lasts. The track 1 to 1 is like a piece of homespun weirdo trap with some Bone Thugs vibes. We have features from Conquest Tony Phillips, Baby Mother, Supernova as well as El Heist. We have a lot of outlandish bars on this track too, and the refrains describe kind of a bad dream about a broken luxury watch. There's also a pumping beat switch in the middle of the track that turns the song into something that is equal parts danceable and gritty. It kind of sounds like something off of a Tyler, the Creator record, but even crazier. Following this, the fourth track is another lo-fi punk rap jammer. Meanwhile, Sacrifice BONAPPÉTIT kind of calls back to some older vibes in the industrial noise and rap scene, bringing on artists like Horror as well as Blackie all caps no spaces to make one of the most abrasive experiences on the entire record. Meanwhile, Screw for Life RIPJALEN is almost like a horrorcore throwback with some classic laid-back southern rap flows and percussion and synthesizers that are much eerier than anything from the classic era of sounds that obviously led up to this point. Following this cut, though, we hit a handful of like transitional moments on the album where Siifu plays with a myriad of different sounds, be it some low-key nightmarish trap or very woozy, low-key pitch-shifted samples, even a bit of bossa nova and some chill ambient cloud rap vibes. But once we move fully into the second half of the record, this is when I feel like we are totally in this mode of terminally chill, vibey, abstract hip-hop, the sort of thing that is typically Siifu's bread and butter. Now, I think a lot of the songs in the second half of this record do bring some very beautiful and intoxicating textures, and then as we dig further toward the end, a lot of the songs on the record start to get shorter, sonically get kind of whittled down and get quieter as well, which is commendable at some points because there are at least a few tracks that border on essentially being like ambient rap sound collages. But still, even these more experimental and adventurous moments are, in my opinion, no real replacement for the very strong first impression this album makes in the beginning leg. Even if there are some very cool, notable appearances from Atlanta legend Big Rube in the mix as well. But yeah, I mean, there were some major and exciting highlights for me on this album, and Pink Siifu obviously continues to be an artist who dives so boldly and creatively into vibes, aesthetics, sound palettes. But at the end of the day, the second half of this record I just found to be not nearly as strong as the first, even if the kind of gradual coast down is intentional on some level. I feel like a more varied track list would have kept things more interesting, especially considering that this album is as lengthy as it is, well over an hour in length. So yeah, despite some fantastic ideas going on with this record, some of Siifu's best material in a minute, really. As an overall album experience, it is still quite underwhelming. Features maybe one too many redundant moments that I don't think add that much to his catalog, nor do I think the overall progression of the track list is all that compelling. So yeah, it's decent, but I certainly have my reservations, which is why I'm feeling a strong 6 on it. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Pink Siifu, forever.